Okay. So these are the topics we'll be covering today. And the very first thing is that what is DevOps? Now, everyone have their own kind of concept. They hear from somewhere, they know from somewhere, but they think that this is the tools, it may be the services, this might be the practices, but what exactly DevOps is, that's the question. Because if you go to an interview or maybe someone asking you for the explanation, they will be asking you very first thing, what is exactly DevOps? And you have to explain in a language that they can understand too. So let's go by the definition first, and I will explain even a bit more further. So what is DevOps? Now, DevOps is a combination of cultural philosophies, tools that increases an organization's ability to deliver the applications and services at high velocity, evolving and improving product at faster pace than the organization using traditional software development and information instruction management process. The speed enable organization to serve the better customer. Okay. Now, all this, the complex definition are fine, but now in simple language, DevOps simply means a set of practices or a set of cultural gap. There is a cultural gap between the devs, the developers, and the operational engineers, okay, or operation management. Now, the more the differences, the less the release processes are, the less the bug fixes are, right? Now, what DevOps doing this merging? Actually, they're merging the devs, the developers, and operations together. It's like a bridge, that one helping another in a more efficient and more communication way. Now, to develop this communication, there need to be some tools, some practices, and all that. That's what about in DevOps is covering the good practices, just like in the definition still, the philosophies, practices, tools to make the communication more secure, and making sure that whenever the developers main logic is what, that as soon as I implement something and feature, I should be able to deploy that immediately. Okay. And but what happens that when developers do that, there are bugs, there are like issues and all that, right? So usually operations engineers don't want that. Operations engineers, the engineers who manage the system, servers and all, and then make sure that anything goes in the cloud, it should be secure, it should be stable, and there should be not much problematic. Okay. Otherwise the customer will be they're making complaining about the issues, and maybe CTO, CEO, or the big team managers will not let them sleep. Okay. So the operation engineers want to make sure that this is absolutely stable. Now, this is contradicting, right? Now, this contradicting of the gap, which is fulfilled by the DevOps. While DevOps making sure the code is well tested, like whenever you make the build, make it very easily deployable, make the test, and the deployment strategy should be like that it should be reversible and it should scale at indefinite space. So suppose I make a simple code change, it should first get to the repository, then the code should be tested, then the build happens, and then, or maybe the build happens first, then these are tested, and then the change will be like it's a ready code to be deployed, and then it's get deployed to the servers. Now, anything happens, there should be option, like anything can go bad, right? You don't know. No one knows, to be honest. Even if you test something could go bad. Then we should have some way or some methodology to make the reverse back, right? That way, developers making always some changes and it going to production or staging server, and operations manager also making sure, okay, something goes wrong, we can always reverse back and we can manage it more stable way. So these are the kind of features that DevOps bringing, that making sure devs and operations working together and making the ultimate goal, that's a product releasing faster, having more stable. Any analytic software is coming, the operation is getting, as soon as they're getting, they're giving to the developers and developer making changes. So entire process getting developed in a better optimized way. That's what DevOps about. Okay. Anything that make your product secure, fast, the delivery should be faster, and making sure the communication between devs and operations are solid. So these are the things that that DevOps bringing to us. Okay. Now this is a very simple diagram I have. Your company that, and you're making some code as a developer, then the build happening, the test happening, the release happening, and after release is monitoring happening. If any bugs found, any issues, or maybe implementation, they're going to plan phase. And again, this is repeating, right? This is all about it. Okay. But this is not just it, because DevOps is a vast field and there are always something evolving around it, some new practices coming. So don't think these are the final things. It never gonna happen. Something is always changing, and something always gonna come to you as a new service or tool. Okay. So you have to be updated with the, like, whatever new technology comes up. Now let's go down. So again, I mean, I talked about DevOps, what the definition on. Now, what are the benefits of the DevOps? Like speed, as I told, like in the previously, devs want that it to be faster release, but the operation want more stability. Now, speed at the move at high velocity, you can innovate for customers faster, adapt to the changing market better, grow more efficient at the driving business result. The DevOps model enables for developers and operations team to achieve their results, just like I discussed. For example, microservices and continuous delivery as a team take the ownership of the services, then release the update to the quick. I'm just like I told in the beginning, okay? Rapid delivery, of course, as I told in the beginning itself, that's because the process is now automatic and it's more optimized. So the delivery should be also faster. So increase the frequency and the pace of the releases. You can innovate and improve your product faster. Let's make it move a bit. Okay, the quicker you can release new features. See, ultimately, business goal actually is to release the feature quickly because there are people waiting. There are competitor. If they make it, they release faster. Their product gonna be more features. Like other people will see you are the copy of the product, right? You don't want that. You want your product or features to be as soon as possible, so people will get traction of that. That is what happened when you have proper way of deploying the services and properly getting the feedback and all. Okay, now again, this is quick. You can release new features and fix the bugs. The faster you can respond to your customer need and build competitive advantage. Just like I told, continuous integration and continuous delivery are the practices that automate the software release process, right? That's why we need the CI/CD. Like you heard about the CI/CD, but why even you need CI/CD? So you need CI/CD or continuous integration plus continuous delivery or deployment, because you want to make your product market faster. You want to make your new features releasing faster. That's the goal. Okay, make sure you understand what is our end goal. Otherwise, why you're working for something, right? Now, the reliability, ensure the quality of the application updates, infrastructure changes, so that you can reliably deliver at a more rapid pace while maintaining a positive experience for the end users. The practices like continuous integration and continuous delivery to test the each change is a functional, safe, and monitoring and logging practices can help you stay informed of the performance in real time. So what happens if something bug happens, you must have some monitoring in place and some logs collection in place. Anything might happen, you analyze the log, monitor like what is the, maybe your CPU is getting utilized more, there is some memory leakage happening. So you should have some ways to find out that, so you can get the inputs and fix as soon as possible. You can serve your customers much better way. Okay, improve collaboration. I think that's the point also I talked in the beginning. I think yeah, it means the scale. Yeah, operate and manage infrastructure development process at scale. So one of the most important goals of the DevOps is that you should manage at the scale. Now scaling is what? For now, for just as example, think about you're starting a business, a small business. You might need one server, one instance. But when the business growing, you need more resources, more number of instances of servers. Like say for sustain, then 20 over the years, 100,000, you don't know. You cannot possibly manage all the servers manually. You need some automation there, isn't it? And that's the way. You cannot update the servers manually for 100 or maybe even 30 or 40. Not just leave the question of 1,000 servers. Now, think about that. If you want to deploy your core changes in the servers, manually is not possible. So you need some automation way. That's why DevOps coming. That's why CI/CD coming. So deployment services which is going to handle the deployment of all these server. It will be coming. AWS has a lot of services to that, so it will be coming there. Improve collaboration, build more efficient team under a DevOps culture model, which emphasizes values such as ownership, accountability. Developers and operation team collaborate closely and share many responsibilities, combine the workflows. Now, one of the goal, very important goal, the DevOps is to let the devs, the developers, and the operation manager work very closely. Maybe like sitting in the same team now is not possible all the way. So maybe in the same group or somewhere. So they should know each other's operation and what's happening, and the collaboration should be much better so that it will be much goes in a more smoother way. Okay. Now this reduces the inefficiencies and saves time. Like e.g., for example, reduce handover period between developers operation, writing code that takes into account the environment which is run. So these are the things like where it should run, how it should run, what are the steps needed, because devs know how actually to be done and they lead the operation team, so they follow the same thing. That's the reason. Now security. Security is one of the DevSecGuru. I think everyone cared about that. Security is now very crucial because if you make a big business, make very good implementation, flawless. But if the security is bad, then it's a bad thing. I mean, it's no meaning of that. Someone coming and hacking us like entire flow and copying the code or maybe copying the secrets, that should not be the way. Now, DevOps also focuses on the security part. It should be secure. The pipeline, the coding, the deployment, everything should happening in a secure way. Okay. Now move. Now this go with the definition part. So more move quickly while retaining the control, preserving the compliance. You can adapt a DevOps model without sacrificing security by using automatic compliance policies, fine-grained policies, configuration management techniques. I will explain a lot more just after a bit. For example, using infra as a code and a policy as a code, you can define and then track compliance scale. But I will give more example of that. Okay, don't worry. Okay. Now I talked about the benefits, right? Now, what are the DevOps practices? Because DevOps is like it's not a tool, it's not a service, it's a practices and the cultural bonding, right? Now, let's go one by one. What are the techniques or practices you have to implement the DevOps for your team or maybe for a project? Okay. The first one is the continuous integration. Now, what is continuous integration? Continuous integration is a software development practice where developers regularly merge their code. As a developer, think of like you are a junior dev or senior dev, you are making changes in your project, and whenever you're done with the project changes, you make sure you like whatever happened before that you push the code in a Git or GitHub, like all Git's the same, just the service will be different. Let's say GitHub or code commit for AWS or maybe the GitLab. So you have to store the software anywhere, right? Then now this thing, when you manage the merging part, normally people like manual merging happens and you have to click on the merge and then you merge, right? Now think about that. Continuous integration is a software development practice where developers regularly merge their code changes into a central repository, after which automatic build and test are run. So when you're making changes, if you don't test it, or there should be some testing that if you are making changes, it should be approved after the test succeeds. Maybe the code need to be built first for the test to happen. So all this can be automated using the continuous integration. Okay. The key goal of the continuous integration are to find and address bugs quicker, because you push something and that doesn't work, then it has to be taken care very fast so that you can make the release faster. The bugs will be fixed faster in this way, right? That's why it reduces the time it takes to validate and release the new software, just like saying. Now that is a continuous integration. Now what is the continuous delivery? The continuous delivery is a software development practice where the code changes are automatically built. So just like continuous integration, make, build and test. Okay. The continuous delivery is a software development process practice where code changes, which are like automatically built, tested and prepared to release for production. So this is a production ready code that need to be deployed. It expands upon continuous integration by deploying all the code changes to a testing environment or a production environment after the build stage. When continuous delivery is implemented properly, developers will always have a deployment ready build artifact, because in the continuous integration phase itself, you are making sure the code is built and test ready. You're testing that also. So it's ready for the continuous delivery, and continuous delivery make sure it get deployed to all the servers that you're targeted faster. Okay. And this reduce the time of the deployment and bug finding. Okay, so now comes to the microservices. Now, I think you heard about the microservices were way too much here and there. Now, microservices architecture is a design approach to build a single application as a set of small services. So normally in monolithic, what happens? Monolithic, you have a single application or maybe single server where you are hosting the database, you're communicating to the same place, you have all the services as a single API, and you are accessing everything from the same place. Now, any breaking happen, any bugs happen, your services are all down. Okay, think about that. One API needed more, and one API doesn't even access in a week or monthly basis, right? But why then you're running all that together as a monolithic? Think about the use cases that way. Now, microservice was doing is letting you decide what services in demand, run the more copy of that instance or service more, and what you don't use, make that as an optional service or maybe low resource service, because it's already getting used low. That way you can save cost and you can boost the performance of the application. Now I'll be coming to that. Let's go with the definition. So the microservice architecture is a design approach to build single application as a set of small services. Each service running own process communicates with services through a well-defined interface using lightweight mechanism, typically a HTTP based application programming interface API. Microservices are built around business capabilities. Each service is scoped to a single purpose, like a service, like a card service, say payment checkout service, or think of it as an example of mail service. This is a service. Like, what are the purpose of the service? Based the make the service based on that. Okay, you can use different frameworks or programming language to write the microservices and adapt microservices and deploy them independently. Because suppose you are making a change, if you the monolithic application, even if your service for a particular code change, but you're deploying entire applications time and time, like 10 people working in a single project, and it's 10 times being deployed. There is no point, right? If you're one particular service, one development making change, and that change only should get deployed. That will make your the release cycle also much smoother and only and less buggy, because only that module have changed, right? So think about that way. Now, infrastructure as a code. The infrastructure code is a practice in which infrastructure is provisioned, managed using the code. Like think about the OML or JSON code where you mention all the architecture and all. And software development techniques such as version controls, continuous integration. The cloud API-driven model enables developers, system and administrators to interact with infrastructure programmatically and at scale instead of needing a manually set up, configure. So let me explain a simple language. Suppose you have made one infra, okay, in one region. Now there is a requirement, maybe the client want it to be a global application, or maybe you're in India and they want it to be Australia or US or Canada. Are you going to like again set up everything from the beginning and do all this what you've already done for one region? That's a lot problematic, isn't it? So what you can do, you can write your infrastructure as a code. So whenever client asks that, see, Sandeep, deploy that in Canada. So Sandeep, deploy that in US. You can simply execute the code and it will get deployed to that particular region. That will make your life a lot easier and save a lot of time. Think about that. Okay. Now, monitoring and logging. I think the beginning also I talked about, like wherever any problem happens and maybe you want to know about the resource usage, so you can even perform like make it more better, or maybe you want to make sure that what is the running time, so that when it's not running, you can just shut down the compute powers to save the cost. This kind of thing you can do by the monitoring and logging. Now let's come here. Organizations monitor the metrics to log and to see the how application and infrastructure performance impact the experience of their product end user by capturing, categorizing, and then analyzing the data logs generated by the application and infrastructure. Like whatever, like in your application, maybe some error logs, maybe some metrics logs, and all that. Infrastructure level, maybe the CPU usage, the network usage, the data usage, and all that. There, organization understand how the changes or updates impacting the users. So anything is changing, is it impacting positively or negatively? That also the customer want to know. Then shedding insight into the root causes of the problem or unexpected changes. Just like I told, active monitoring become increasingly important at services must be available, because now if you think about it, there are many applications which require the application to be available 24/7. And if any problem happen, you need some way to debug, like find the root cause, then fix it, and as soon as possible. You want the auto recovery on only, but you need to understand there's a problem first. If the problem happens, then only you want the auto recovery, right? So the finding part also needs monitoring and logging. Okay. Now creating alerts on performing real-time analysis of the data also help organization more proactively monitor their services. Okay. And then again, it's kind of repeating point, but the communication and collaboration. So increase communication collaboration in organizations, one of the key cultural aspects of DevOps. The use of DevOps tooling, automation, software development process establish the collaboration by physically bringing together the workflow and responsibility of development and operations. Like joining a team, Dev and Oops, you understand from the word itself is together DevOps, isn't it? Building on top of that, the team set strong cultural norms around the information sharing and facilitating communication through the use of chat application issue. One of the examples is Jira, I can say, or a project tracking system and wikis. This helped speed up the communication across developers, operations, and even other teams like marketing and sales, allowing all part organization to be aligned. I think it's give one example, very good point here. Then when you work as a DevOps engineer, you are not just talking with the operations team. You have to talk sometime with the CDO or the team lead the marketing people, because they want to run something in a particular like Black Friday or something, and they expecting the customer will come, the works, like you have to understand the work spike will happen, the resource usage will grow more. So this kind of things you have to understand as a DevOps engineer as well. So think about that. Okay, communication is very important. Now I talked about all that, right? So practices, what is DevOps and all. Now come to the AWS. AWS is the leading cloud service provider in the cloud space, where you want to host your application or use a service, whatever you want. Now, as part of DevOps tools and services point of view, what are the exact service or tools AWS is giving us as a DevOps engineers to make our life a lot easier? We have to understand that. And here you see we'll go by the category, like what are the practices I just discussed, and based on that, we'll see what are the services they're providing. Okay. The first is the continuous integration and continuous delivery. Now, the very first thing is coming to AWS Code Pipeline. In the demo, I will show the code pipeline from the very scratch, so don't worry, I'll cover it anyway. Now, what is AWS Code Pipeline? AWS Code Pipeline is a continuous integration and continuous delivery service for fast, reliable application and infrastructure updates. Code Pipeline build, test, deploy your code every time there is a code change based on the release process model that you define inside the AWS Code Pipeline. This enables you to rapidly and reliably deliver the features and services. Now, here I want to mention a few points. I will discuss about the services individually just after that. That AWS Code Pipeline let you define the flow. Like this should be your source, then should be your build phase, then should be a deployment, and make this process easier. It's like a pipeline making. So the name itself, it's a pipeline. You mentioned where you should want to put some things, but it's not building the code for you. It's not storing the codes for you, like not making not making a repo for you. We have to make the repo. Okay. So understand those all parts. I will be coming this shortly, like the code build. So AWS code build, like you can use with the code pipeline, or you can use individually as well. AWS code build is a fully managed build service that compiles the source code, run tests, and produces software packages that are ready to deploy. One very good example is like what I want to show in the our demo today, making a Docker image and then passing the Docker image to the registry and then for the deployment. So we need to run ECS or EKS or any containers application need an image to run, right? And that image you have to make from the source code, like Node.js or Python, whatever code you have. That can be done. The image making part can be done by the AWS code build. Or now think about other example, like you have a C project. You want to make the final.exe file or some binary file that be ready to executable. That also you can make via the code build. Okay, so remember that part. That this is the ultimate file that is ready to deploy. Think that way, or maybe some process you want to execute. Okay, now you don't need to provision, manage, scale your own build servers. Code build scale continuously, processes multiple build concurrently, so your builds are not left waiting in a queue. Now think about very good point here that you don't have to manage anything. You don't have to manage the EC2 instances or any instances. You don't have to manage all the complicated configurations. You just have to write a build spec file. I will show shortly. Using that, you can instruct code build to run a service, and you don't have to actually don't have to manually provision anything. That's the best part. It's completely serverless. Okay, remember that, but this is very important. If you are thinking about appearing in AWS certification exams, this kind of question can be asked. Okay. Now AWS code deploy. AWS code deploy automates the code deployment to any instance, including Amazon EC2 instances, on-premise servers. AWS code deploy makes it easier for you to rapidly release new features, help you avoid downtime during the application deployment, and handles the complexity of updating your applications. Just like I can talk in the middle, I think, where I'm talking about, like, if you have 100 or 1,000 servers, how can you deploy it, right? Now that problem is solved by the AWS code deploy, where it doesn't matter how many servers you have, you can deploy, you can mention what is the deployment strategy should be, and mentioning that you can deploy that particular application to the numbers of the AWS instances or maybe ECS instances. You can do that way. Okay. And now let's go to the CodeStar. Now AWS CodeStar enables you quickly develop, build, and deploy applications on AWS, like using all the services just I talked. It you just help you to manage the project. Okay. AWS Code provide a unified user interface, enabling you to easily manage your software development activities in one place. With AWS Code Start, you can set up your entire continuous delivery tools in minutes, allowing you to start releasing code faster. So it just is allowing to use other services altogether, like code pipeline, code build, code deploy, code commit altogether to make your release process faster. Okay. Now come to the microservices. So like instead of having a monolithic application, you should have multiple service pointed to like for a particular reason or particular objective oriented services. Okay. For that, you can use the Elastic Container Service, which we will cover today. And another is a Lambda. Lambda is like serverless functions. Okay. I will not go to each and this function, otherwise it will be too big session. Infra as a code. For infra as a code, like you can write YML file or JSON, entire server configuration, like how much should be, what should be the instance type, or how much should be the memory of that, or maybe what should be the Elastic Beans block storage, like how much GB, 20 GB, 30 GB, 40 GB, as you want your application need. You can mention where it should be stored in S3, then you can create the S3 bucket dynamically. All these things you can, more complicated thing also can be done by the CloudFormation. Okay. OopsWorks, AWS OopsWorks is the configuration management services that uses Safe. I think you already heard about Shift. It's a popular tool to automate a platform that treats server configurations code. Also uses Safe to automate how servers are configured, deploy, manage across your Amazon Elastic Compute. This is EC2 instances or on-premise computer environments. For that, it needs an agent. Okay. OpsWorks has two offerings: AWS OpsWorks for Shift Automate and AWS OpsWorks Stacks. Okay. But we're not going to on further on that. Okay. But remember that you have the option. If you're using Chef, you can migrate to AWS OpsWorks. Okay. Now, next is just a moment. AWS System Manager. AWS System Manager is a management services that helps you automatically collect the software inventory, apply OS patches, create system images, configure Windows, Linux operating system. These capabilities help you define and track system configuration, prevent drift, and maintain software compliance. Now think about why even you should use System Manager. When you have hundreds of servers, just like a top, and you need to patch the service, how can you patch all the service? You cannot go manual and patch it, right? You need some automation. Now DevOps is for application deployment, is good, that particular CI/CD flow. But to manage the system, you need some tools or some way, like Ansible as open source. Think about AWS System Manager, which is more powerful because it's more towards AWS. You can manage the patches, make the image backups, make it encrypted. All this complicated thing you can do very easily by the System Manager. So get a look there. Okay. Now, next is AWS config. AWS config is very useful when you want to make sure that something doesn't go out of your hand. Someone making sudden change that you don't want them to make, you can make a rule for that. And if they do it, you can revert it back and you get notified. That kind of things. Okay, you can do by that. Now, monitoring and logging. As I told, in DevOps, monitoring and logging is very important. For that, in AWS, giving you AWS CloudWatch for the matrices all over the any kind of like memory metrics or CPU metrics, network metrics. You can get all these kind of things from CloudWatch. Now, application related logs you can get from the AWS X-Ray. Those are more towards the application problem, application bugs finding. Okay, and AWS CloudTrail makes sure the access you're giving, no one is like abusing your accesses that you're providing to someone. It tracks of who are calling what, that kind of thing. Suppose a user you have created in AWS calling unwanted service or trying to do something, you can track all that via the AWS CloudTrail. Now, another thing is a platform as a service, Elastic Beanstalk, where you have option for Java, .NET, PHP, Python, Ruby, Go, and also Docker support. You can run inside Elastic Beanstalk. Okay. Or version control. Think of version control as a Git. Okay, Git or GitHub, Bitbucket. Think about those cases. Your source code management. Simply in AWS, you have dedicated resource or service that is called AWS Code Commit. AWS Code Commit is a fully managed source control service that makes it easy for companies to host securely and highly scalable private Git repositories. You can use Code Commit to securely store anything from source code to binaries, and it works seamlessly with other.
Hi, Sandeep. Sorry to interrupt you. Actually, I think your screen is stuck. So the next slide is not visible to the participants.
Is it?
Can anyone confirm the attendees? Are you able to see now? Okay, great. We can go ahead.
Or
Please
is
continue.
it visible?
Yes, please continue.
Okay. Okay. Now I think enough of the theory, and I think theory don't people don't like that much. Now let's go back to the main thing. Okay. So we are done with the basics. We have covered all the theoretical part you need to know. Now here what I'm going to show you is we are going to show using code pipeline, code commit, code build, and AWS ECS how can you deploy simple application. Okay, and then I will show at the end how you can do the advanced way. Maybe not go that way because you will not have much time. I will show how you can go for the plugin deployment at the end. But first learn the basic thing. Okay, for that you need a Docker image. I will show why you need it, and you need to learn about how to publish the image to ECR, and then the key concept in ECS I will be explaining while deploying the service. Okay, the first thing is that you need a Docker file. Okay, and just a moment. Okay, and we have a Docker file here. In this Docker file, it's very simple one. Okay, just we are using base images Node.js 14, and then we are specifying what is our work directory, like where the file will be created, our source code will be copied, all that thing. And then we have we are copying our package.json. Now package.json also, if you work in Node.js project before, it's simple. What are the dependencies the project have? It's a simple application. Let me come to the index.js. You can see it's just running CI/CD app version 1 and a status call. Okay, nothing extra in there. In the Docker file, we are copying the package, then you are installing all the dependencies, then you're copying all the source code and all, and then exposing port 3000, and then you are simply running the Node.js application. Okay, that's all you are doing here, nothing complicated. Okay, now let's first go in the AWS and let's go here. First, we will create the Amazon ECR repo. Okay, so just a moment, let me create. If you log in into AWS, you will see screen like this. Search for ECR. Okay, Elastic Container Registry. Click on that, and let me create a repository. It should be public because you don't want your source code to be visible to everyone, of course. Let's call it WishLab demo. Okay, Docker demo. Just demo. Docker demo. Okay, simple. Go down and let's click on the create repository. What it will do, it will create a repository so that if you generate your Docker image, it will be stored in this particular ECR repository. Okay, click on that, and if you click on view push command, you will see all the command required the image to be generated and then pushed in this particular repo. That's what it'll do. Now next thing, we need to run this. I mean, first make the image and run it somewhere, but we need to do it somewhere, right? That somewhere you need to build first. So for that, we'll need the ECS. In AWS ECS, we'll create a cluster so that we can run our application inside there. So let's do that. Come to the ECS, search in the top, just search for the ECS. You can see Elastic Container Service. Click on that. Okay. Click on clusters. You can see no clusters there. Click on create cluster and click on EC2 Linux networking. Go down, click on next step, and then cluster name. Give the cluster name as, for example, demo cluster. Okay, and then on demand instance, fine. Let's choose T3 small, and I want 2 services, 2 instances, and all are good. Create a new VPC is always good practice. And go down. Make sure you are allowing the port properly in the security group. if you don't have any, you can simply create a new, select the create new role, and it will create for you. I already have one, so I'll go with that. If you want to get inside, like what is the resource usage inside the container, you can enable this container inside option. Click on create, and it will create all the details. Now it's a good practice to keep a reference of this, what the final resources created. You can keep a track of that. Okay, so let it create, and we'll come here in the ECR just to see. Then we push commands. We can make a local one, but I think it will be better if I show you from using the in code pipeline. I attach the source code and the source repo, and then make the build, and later we will attach with the ECS. Okay, wait for that. Now come to the AWS management console and look for code pipeline. Come here. The first thing we'll do, we'll attach the source code, we'll create a pipeline, then add a source code, and then we'll make a build of the code. Okay, that will do. So come here, click on the create pipeline. In the pipeline, give it demo pipeline, and we'll ask you to create a service role. So to create the necessary access for your code pipeline, click on advanced, and it will ask you, you want to store the artifact, like the final that the code generated at the end. Where do you want to store it? You want to store in your, like every time new pipeline create, you can go for the default option and it will create a new bucket. But I will say it will create too much bucket and you will hit the limit first. So I have one bucket for me, sample category demo, where I store all this code pipeline, like all this binaries I will store there. So I will use that one. And then the encryption key, go in the default one is okay. But if you want to have it more secure and your own custom managed key, you can go for the second option. But for this demo, okay, the name already exists, so we call it new. Okay, go down and click on next. Then it will ask you for the service provider, and what options you have. You have code commit, ECR, S3, Bitbucket, GitHub, GitHub version 1 and 2, and GitHub Enterprise. For this demo, we'll go with the code commit, but remember you have all these options, so you can indicate any source provider. Okay, we'll go to the code commit, and in the code commit we have repository name code deploy demo. I just showed in the code the same thing, but let me show in the AWS console also how it looks like. Search for code commit. You can see code commit, click on that. And you can see code deploy demo. Now, if you don't have the repo, you want to also host in the AWS code commit, you can simply click on create repository and you can the name, and then you'll get the option like simple any Git or GitHub. You can push the code to the code commit, but make sure to use create a user using IAM, and there you create the access for the particular user. Okay. Now I have the codes all here, the same code that I've shown in the editor. Now come back to the code pipeline. Now this is the repo I've selected. The branch name, we'll select master. And here the change direction. What is the change direction? Like if you're making any code change, the pipeline need to know like the change happened. Now, then only it will start the entire flow. All the pipeline, like pulling the codes and pushing to the code build and triggering the code build. So that happens, you need option. You can do it via the AWS code pipeline. Build on is like periodically calling for changes, looking, or you can use the CloudWatch. I will better suggest use the CloudWatch because that will make your life a lot easier. Okay, so it will be more real time. As soon as you put changes, push changes, that will automatically build. Okay, and the output format should be code pipeline default. Let's go next. Now the build provider. The build provider give it as a AWS code build. Okay, and we don't have a AWS code build project now. Why we need the AWS code build? Because in the build provider you have the Jenkins. If you don't know, Jenkins also used for the build. Okay, now since we are talking about AWS here, we'll go with the AWS. And region, make sure that you use the like region you're already in or where your resources are. The project name we can give demo build app. Okay, nothing is there, so we'll create the demo build app or demo build project, you can say, is the most rememberable. So click on create project, It's opened a new window for us, browser window. Now in the project name, give it demo build project. Description, you don't have to. If you want, you can give. If you want to restrict the number of the builds happen, maybe all 10 developers pushing the code at once, then 10 concurrent build will happen, right? You can restrict to the only latest one. You can do that way. Environment manage. So you can either bring your own image if you have custom requirement, custom maybe license software utilizing, or maybe some other tools utilizing which doesn't normally available. You can have your own custom. It could be for any reason, like you want to have your own image for the build to happen. You can utilize that. Or if you want that in a particular optimized, less bugs, that kind of like a secure build system, you can go for the manage image. Okay, that's managed by AWS. And in the operating system, you can go for the Amazon Linux 2. The runtime, go for standard. Image, you can select the latest one. And environment type, Linux. Privilege, if you want to make Docker build, because we are going to make the Docker build, isn't it? For that, enable this flag. Okay. Service role, build project, demo build project service role. Now I think demo build project new service role, because I know one role might be exist for the previous demo. Make sure you give the name of the service role name. Then the timeout, like after suppose that a build is running, it's like too long. Now you have, if you go on, sorry, go on.
Your screen is stuck again. It is.
Okay.
Can you check again?
Is it stuck for everyone?
Yes. Can you refresh?
Okay. I'm just stopping sharing and again sharing.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Is it visible?
Can the participants confirm? Okay. Yes, please continue.
Okay. Okay. So I think I hope that you didn't miss this one.
No issues. If anyone has missed it, please put your questions in the Q&A. We'll take it up towards the end.
Okay. So in the code build here, then timeout, like what should be your timeout, what maximum time it should run. After that, it will mark as a failure. Then quit timeout. If it's not started, it's stuck in queue, for how much time it should stuck. And if you want to install a particular certificate for any reason, you can install from S3. VPC, if you want to run, if you want to access some resources that only accessible to particular VPC, then you might need to enter some VPC here. Otherwise, you don't need it normally. Environment variable. Now, environment variables are very important. And I will just explain what are the environment variable is. But for that, I have to explain the build spec that is required for this. At the end, you will see it's asking for a build spec. Now it's time to let you know, guys, what is the build spec look like. Okay. So this is the build spec. What happening in the build spec? In the build spec, first we are logging into ECR. Now, why when we are logging into ECR? Now let's come back to flow here in the ECR. See, the first step is to get login credential in the ECR so that we can push the image to ECR. Okay, that you are doing in the pre-build phase, because if it doesn't have the resources or any problem, we should fix that first before going to the next step, because there is no point of waiting 20-30 minutes for the longer project, or maybe 5 minutes, and then see you don't have any access to the pushing to ECR. So it's a waste of time, right? You should not do that. You should make sure whatever you need before environment prepare for, make sure it's in the pre-build phase. Now in the build spec, everything have a phase. Okay, the phases are normally pre-build, the build, and post-build, and there are other options like artifact, cache, and all that. But very important are only phases part, most important. Okay, then the artifact if you want to push some information to the next phase for that. Now in the phases, there's pre-build where you make sure all your environment, whatever need is ready, and to have that, you can run as a command. So whatever you need, you can run in a self-scripting command. Then is the build phase. In the build phase, you actually make the build. And to do that, you again run commands and making sure whatever command need to be run, you run it. Okay. In the post build, you also have command. What command you need? So your build is ready, your environment is ready. Now you have to maybe delete some resources, or maybe push that copy to somewhere else, maybe it's 3, or maybe for this example, you're pushing to the ECR. Okay. Now, in this particular example, what you're doing, you're first logging into ECR, just follow the same instruction. first logging in into ECR, then it's making the build, then it's making that tag like from the local build to remote tagging is doing, and then pushing it. Same way, we first making sure our logging is there. We are making a URI of the entire repo. That is first AWS account name. Just exactly here we have AWS account name, then the region, and then the repo. Similar way, we are mentioning everything as an environment variable. So you see the dollar sign here, those are the environment variables. Okay, so we have utilized for the Docker login part, and again we are utilizing it for the repository URI. Now here we are defining new environment variable because you don't want to copy the same thing here and there again and again. Instead, you can store in another environment variable and you can utilize that. First, you are in the preview itself, we are pulling the codes. Now, if it's not there, there will be nothing. Then we are making the build. In the build, we are simply going by that. We are first echoing that start date, then making the build Docker image. Then we have the cache, then we are making from the cache. If we don't, it's skipping. Then Docker tag is there. We are tagging that local build with the remote. And then we are in the post build, we are doing that. Okay. Let me come back here. Now let's make our first build. Do that. Let's go to our code build project. Here we need to mention all these environment variables. So let's add one by one. First is this AWS account ID. Let's copy one by one. Let's first add the environment variable first, and then we can copy the values. Then the AWS default region. Then repository, then image repo name. Then image tag name. Image tag is like what is the versioning on tagging you want to do, you can mention it here. And then at the end, you need the repository URI. So not repository, the container name. We already have, we are defining here the repository URI. So now this is we did for the next part, the deployment phase. But okay, for now, deployment is fine. Now for this AWS account ID, we can get the value from ECR. This is the account ID. Copy that. For the default region, again, you can copy from here. You can copy from the top also, but let's copy from here. We need the image repo name. You can again copy from here. Image tag. Image tag is up to you what name you want to give. For here, we are giving latest. Container name, let's say demo container for now. And you will use the same name in the ECS also later. Let's now, I think we are all good. Now come back in the build spec, it's default build spec you're using. And if any issue happens, we can simply make change, and I'll show how to, if any issue happens, we can how to debug all that. I'll show. So don't worry. All that done. Now go down and continue to pipeline. Just wait for it to done. Okay, so you can see this project name coming. Just let me remove that and paste it. Now you can also mention the environment variables here, but this we already added there, right? So now for next, the deployment provider. Here we'll just skip this one for now, and then after the build happens, we'll go for the deployment. So skip the deployment stage, and we are done. The build project name is this. Skip the pipeline. Okay, code pipeline already exists. Code pipeline service role. already exists. So we have renamed it. Get back the pipeline setting. So just a moment. Okay, so let's get a custom role name. Go back. Let's keep this deploy stage. Let's see. Okay, create the pipeline. It's stuck somewhere, so we'll just create a fresh one. I think already store the steps, so it will be easy. So the pipeline. Click on create. Let's go back, advance. Make sure custom location, CI/CD. Click on next. Source provider, code commit. Project name code deploy demo. Branch name master. Okay, all good. Let's go next. Build provider code build. Project name, the demo build project. Go down. Next. Then the deploy provider. We're just skipping that one. Skip and create pipeline. Sometimes problem happens. You can just simply refresh and start anew. So don't worry on that part. And any problem happens, we should be able to fix it. So don't worry. And you can see source just started and build this like getting started here. We have to wait for the build to happen and see the build in progress. So you can click on the build project and remember that part. This build, you can check what's happening in the build details and come down. I think build isn't started yet. So let's see. Yes. And expect the problem to happen, okay? Because maybe some permission related problems and all this happens and we'll wait for that. If any event happens, we have to find out how to find the problem. Where's the problem? So phase detail, you can see what are the phases is gone. So first submitted, the query is also succeed, provisioning happening. After the provisioning, the preview phase will happen. The provisioning done, the download source is happening. Let's see. And it's failed. So it says access denied status, that saying that you don't have the access for the source. Okay. Now how to handle this one? We actually need few more permission for the particular build role. What are the permissions? We need the source to be copied from the code commit, one permission. Then from the ECR, you need to pull the image if there is any and push it. So you need the ECR permission also. Okay, so you need that two permission. So let's add that. So if you click on the build details and there's a service role option, click on that. Just wait for it to load. And once it's load, you can see attach policies. Click on that. Look for code commit full access. For this demo, I'm giving code commit full access. But for you, maybe you want to refine it a bit more. And we need the ECR repository access. Registry. Okay, ECR registry access. You can see Amazon EC2 container registry full access. Let's attach the policy. Okay, so it's done. Now let's come back to the code pipeline. So we can just come back to the code pipeline here. This failed. So we can manually also run the projects in the release change. Simply click on the release change. And it will again, the source will happen and then it will come to the build phase. So let's wait for that. So Now again, also some problem might happen. I'm expecting if since the pulling image and the image is not there. Oh, sorry, go on. Hello. Okay. So let's wait for the build phase. It's in progress. And we'll have a details option so that clicking on that, you can go to the build details. Wait for that. So what we do is we simply edit the rows. Now in this script, I am only doing ECR. Suppose you are handling with some like downloading a file from S3 or anywhere else, maybe from the parameter store, then you should have that access added from this particular build row. Okay, so remember that part. Click on the details, is open for us. In the phase details, you'll see what are the phases happening. So again, X69 request ID. Okay. Okay, I think I forgot to add the S3 also, because this happening via custom bucket, right? Again, I just told you that you need to add accesses. Now, finding why this is the happening, that's finding the problem part. It's saying the resource from S3, isn't it? See the S3 part. So we didn't give the S3 access. So let's give it full S3 access, and then it should work. So bugs, I mean, the issues kind of this happens. You have to patiently check what could be the problem and find out the problem and then fix it like this. So go to pipeline again and simply come here and click on the release change. This time it should work fine. I'm saying that, but what I'm expecting is that in this case, the pulling in the pull part, it might fail, but let's see if it doesn't, it's fail or not. So let's wait for that. But the source part will not fail now. So this repo actually is available publicly, and it have different use cases, like simple one, like this one, or with complicated with cache. So all these examples are there. You can go and watch. Okay. If you're looking for the code references, you can have it. I will share with the WizLab team so we can take from them. Let's see. While it's happening, let me explain a bit about you can see the download source happen, the install happen. Now, if any problem happen, maybe in the build phase itself can happen. So let's wait for that. Okay, see the command image Docker pull one there, you can see the problem. Comment phase, you can see the problem after logging not found. You can see this repo doesn't exist. Okay, so we can simply make change in the code like this, remove this part, and there is no build from cache, just build. Let me actually give the normal one. This will be easy. Again, here is simple. There is no pulling happening, no cache, simple image building happening, Docker build -t. And we don't even need to mention the file because it's the same Docker file, default one. You're tagging the image, all are same. Okay. This first add the file, commit, say the build spec fix, and run it. Then in the master, let's come back here in the pipeline and let's see this automatically starting or not. You can see as soon as I push the change here, it started building automatically. That's what making the like as soon as I make any changes, it's automatically integrating in the build. When I'm making the build itself, you can also run the test cases if you have any and do all that. That's a good use case also. So let's come here. And soon we will have the details. Now I think the image will generate fine because here it's very simple. Let me explain a bit here. Just I think already explained it, but just for confirmation, we are logging in. We are storing the repository variable. We are making the build docker build -t, then the image repo name, the tag. Then you're tagging the local repo with the remote repo, and in the post build section, we are pushing the image and making the task image definition file. I will explain later what it does. So click on the details. In the phase details, if you see, let's wait for it to the source happen, the installation happen. Now the pre-build phase. And you can see all these logs. See, now the basic Node.js, the base Node.js is getting pulled and all this happening. Now, sometime in the Docker file, it's now actually Node.js 14, right? While working with AWS, what happens that now this is like we are not giving any particular from where it's pulling. So it's pulling from the Docker Hub. Now Docker Hub have one condition of that, rate limiting. So there is a limit that how many times you can pull the Node.js version. To avoid that, simply you can like create one repo in the ECR. Consider the tips because I have faced this issue multiple times. So in the ECR, Elastic Container Registry, so it load. You can create one new repo called Node 14. Say Node and create that repository and click on there. And if you push commands, you can just log in and push that Node.js 14 image from local to that that particular repo, and then you can have that same URL you can use in this. Okay, you can use here instead. But let's see if we face an issue, I will show. Otherwise, let's skip it. Code build. Now see the build also pushed. Okay, so now if we come to the ECR and let's go back to the images. And if you click on the VSLab demo, see we have our Node.js image ready. Okay, now we have our image ready. Click on the image and it will give you the image URI. Okay, you can go here also, copy URI. Now we have the URI and now we have this reference. This as I tell, let's copy the reference also. It will be required sometimes. Let's save it some as a default info or something. That's up to you. View cluster. And if you click on the ECS instances, now ECS instances are running inside like the agent. ECS agents are running inside the EC2 instances. So if you click on the instances, you can see these are the two instances running, and this is the resource allocated there. Okay. Okay, now we are going to what we are going to do. We are going to first create the task definition. Now, in ECS, you have like we already done with the basic Docker image building, and we push the image also to ECR. I explained how. Then the ECS part. ECS, we already had created the cluster as I show you how to create the cluster, and in each EC2 instance, we have one ECS instance agent running that is controlling all the action because we are making any change from the ECS console that affecting there. Now we have tasks. We have to run the tasks inside these instances. Tasks, think tasks are kind of like instance of your application, or running instance, you can say, or the running containers. Okay. And then to run the task, you need task definition, which is like how that task should run. What is the resource should be there, like how much MB RAM on the CPU, all that you can define using the task definition. So let's do that. Come to the ECS and go to the task definition. And we can click here and say in the now here it's three option: EC, Fargate, EC2, and external. Fargate, we didn't select the Fargate, we didn't select the external. We are go for the, you select the EC2 while creating the entire cluster, right? So click on the EC2, click on next step, and there it will ask you for the task information name. So we'll give it demo task. Okay. And the role, nothing. If you are particular want to use some services, you can give the role, otherwise you don't need it. Network mode, you have bridge, that is a default network for Docker. Host, that will bind to the host network system, but here you don't have all the flexibilities like in the bridge you will have. Then you have the AWS VPC, it's AWS virtual network that you can connect, you can see. But again, you have the limitations also here. So best I will say, if you don't know what to use, go with the default or bridge options. Okay, that's the execution role. If you want to create a role, you can connect. I mean, if you don't have any new, you can create with that, or you can just go with your existing one if you have any. Now you can see this option. You can give the task memory here, or you can simply mention in the definition in the container also. Now this is the main part where you are mentioning how that particular application is going to run. Container name. Let's go back and our build project. Let's see. This is the build project. And in this build project, environment variables, if you go to the build details down, environment variables, we have given a container name, right? So let's use that name. Container name. And image repo. Again, image repo, you have to come to here and you can see this repo. Suppose this is the repo. Normally repositories will come like this, and the repositories are created. Copy the URI, and then in the image, paste that one. Okay. Now, suppose it's a private repository from somewhere else, you need to give the authentication here. Okay. We are using our own account, so we don't need to. Now, the soft limit you can mention around, I think 3 MB, 300 MB should be fine. Okay. And go down the port mapping. Here in the port mapping, now if you want to like one particular instance, you want to run a particular port, and in a particular instance, like EC2 instance is one, you can mention the host port. But if you want to look dynamic, like you can have the same instance copy or multiple times in a single EC2 instance. And a single EC2 instance, like a single machine, have multiple ports open, right? But if you in the particular IP, that port will be blocked. Don't do that. You can make it dynamic. So to make it dynamic, in the host port, you have to give 0. That way, you can have n number of port dynamically. Dynamically ECS will decide what to add. Ultimately, you don't have to decide. In that case, you can run multiple instances or multiple tasks inside a single EC2 instance. This is very useful in that case. So what is the container port? Let's go to the container port. You can look at the Docker file is 3000. Come back here. This. Go down. If you want to add any health check, you can add it there. CPU, you can give any, like if you want a particular number of CPU units there, you can give it. Let's say 500, like half CPU. Near to half. 500 will be a near one, half one. Essential working directory. Now you can, if you have your application needs some environment variables, you can mention here itself. You can give, or if you have a lot of like say 100, 200 of a number of environment variables, you can click on the add source and you can enter the S3 ARN there. It's up to you. So go down. We are not going to add that. Go down. I want the logs because any problem happen, you should know the logs. And I think all good. Let's click on add. And go down, create it. So we have created demo task 1. Okay. Now the next thing is go to cluster. And this is demo cluster. We are going to create not just simply run the task, get service, because something problem happened. Maybe one ECS task goes down. You should have a way to automatically create a new task to compensate that. So for those cases, service actually make sure that your service doesn't go down and make sure the load balancer should be there and all that. So go with the service one, it will be easier to manage. If you have 3 options, since we have selected while creating the this cluster, we have selected EC2, right? So go for the EC2. Then in the family, we have created a demo task, if you remember. Go down, the service name, give it demo service. How many number of the tasks you want to run? Go to the one default and say rolling update. Now this is the one. Suppose for this one, I'm going showing simple one. But if you want to go for the blue green deployment, you should have like what should be your deployment configuration and all that. What should be your service role? You can, like, if you don't have any, you can create one and attach that to this here. And for that, I have even given a sample abstract file also. So this is the one. But in this demo, I'll just show the simple this one. If you can try it in your home, in your locally, when trying with the blue green deployment, okay? Because we have less time, that's why. The placement setting, go with the bean pack. So where we have the less, more resources available and less memory. I think we are good here. Click on next step. So let's verify once. Demo task, here one number of tasks. Good. Next step. Here you have options like what will be your load balancer type. So application load balancer, network load balancer, classic load balancer. We'll go with the application load balancer. Now this is the option called service AM role. So if you don't have one, you can select the create new role and it will create one for you. The load balancer. Now we should create our new load balancer for this application. So come to this like your home page of AWS. Now look for EC2. There, go down and you will see the option for load balancer. Now click on that. And see the option create load balancer. Click on that. Select load balancer type. Of course, you selected the application load balancer. And let's call it demo WishLab LB. It will be easy for me to relate it. Okay, that's why. Now this is the important one, the VPC. Now you remember I just copied the info there, and here the VPC. You can find another way also. I will show, but here is the VPC. VPC is, go down. See VPC ID. This is the VPC ID where it is 4840. So we must make sure we select that one. 4840. Okay, 4840. Just confirm that properly. Otherwise, we'll see a lot of things doesn't work. 4840. Okay. Select the availability zones. Now it's all good. Click on configure security groups. Click on next configure security group and create a new security group for that. And call it load, say demo app LB. Demo app LB. WishLab LB. It will be much more remember that way. Okay, allow port 80 because we're not going to configure the HTTPS. Going with the simple port HTTP one. Configure routing, and we can create say demo WishLab LB TG target group, and go with the default option. All that you don't have to make any changes. Don't even select the other things. Go that way. Don't have to select the ECS instances also. It will ECS will automatically manage that for you. Click on review. Looking good. Go down and create it. Okay, close. Now you have to make one more change. See, this is the one, right? Demo WishLab LB. Go down, and there is a security group ID for this one. See, zone, go down, security group, copy this ID. Then I told you, right? There is another way to find out how to what is your VPC ID and all. So let me show that. Go to AWS ECS. Go there. Then click on the cluster name. Then there is a ECS instances. Go down And this is ECS instance ID. Click on that. See, this is running. If you click on the details of that, you can see what is the VPC ID, what is the networking, what is the public IP, all these networking you can see. Now what we want to make here that we want to all the traffic from any port from that this particular machine from the load balancer. So load balancer can come to any port, we should serve it. And that we have to make sure. So click on this group ID. Here you can see 80 port is allowed from anywhere. Now edit rules and add rule. In the custom, let's paste the security group ID of the particular load balancer. In the instead of custom, say all TCP, because we have enabled the dynamic port mapping. And if you don't do that, then you are not sure from which port, in which port the traffic will come. Okay, that is the reason we should allow all TCP from that particular load balancer. Now save the rules, and we are done. Come to our ECS configuration. Here we'll refresh it. Load balancer name, and you'll see demo VSLAP LB and demo container, add to load balancer. Here port 80, and demo group, since we have created some which is okay, we can go with that. Looks good. We have mapped the port and everything. Click on the next step. Now here is service auto scaling. Suppose the load comes, say a lot of users coming, then it should create new number of instances to handle the load, right? For that, we need this. Click on auto configure. For now, let's keep it 1. Or maybe the number of tasks can be 2. Target tracking. So when should the scaling happen? Say high CPU. So anytime there is very high number, like high CPU usage, this application using too much CPU, for then we can, for 80% more than, then we can add a new task. Okay. Next step, looks good to me. Let's click on case service. Now wait for the service to be created. And you'll see one by one, all these services will get created. Okay, looks like all services created. Click on view service. And you can see that task is pending state. Once it's become ready, and we can come to the load balancer. So go to the load balancer, and load balancer, you'll see there is a DNS name. You can copy that. Once this is ready state running, we can load in the browser. So I think it's not ready yet. So let's wait for it to ready. Then it should work fine. I think it's still provisioning here. Let's see, active. So wait for some time. It should, yeah. See, CI/CD version 1 is running. So that's how we make ready the ECS cluster. Okay. Now we have the code, we have the server, we have the image already built using the pipeline. Now, if you make any change, instead of doing manually updating the cluster, how can you make the cluster automatically update as soon as you make change and the build works fine? We will do that one now. So to do that, let me explain one file here. That is not file, actually, it will be generated on the fly. In build spec, there's a file called image definitions.json. Okay. In this definition, what we are having, we are saying that new image generated, where that image should get affected or get deployed. That we are doing here. Printf name, that is a container name. The image URI is the URI, that is a remote URI. That one that we are generating. That's why utilizing as a variable, right? There has to be some usage. Otherwise, why are you using this? And then you're storing the what is the generated tag name, and inside it tags the image definition file, and that you're passing to next stage. Now we have to add the new stage here. Okay, to do that, let's come here and go to that service. Fine, we have opened a lot of tabs. Let's close this, and we should come to the pipeline. Remember the pipeline we have created? In that pipeline, Click. Just wait for a few moments. And I will show now how to edit the pipeline also. You understand how to create the pipeline, how to find the bugs, fixes, and all. It's taking time. Did it load? Okay, loaded. So to edit a pipeline, click on edit. Like we come to the pipeline first and then click on edit. And then we have source, we have build. Now we are going to define the deployment. So there is an add stage. See, click on add stage and we're calling deploy to AWS ECS. Okay, add stage. I think yeah, we cannot add space. Okay, let's remove the spaces. Add stage. There, what should be the action? So click on add action group. Now action name should be deploy changes to ECS service. Action provider. There's a lot of action providers here. So let's look at that. Manual approval, the code build, Jenkins, deploy. You have all that, right? So we are looking for the ECS. Now you can see it here. You have the ECS plugin also. Maybe in the home you only try the plugin is in the abstract that I've given in the there. You can see if you that, then you have to mention all that file and everything. But for the simplicity and the time pace, I'm going with the normal one, ECS. The input architect will be the source artifact or the build architect from the build. Okay. Now, what is that build artifact? That is the image definition file. Okay. Now go down. I think, okay, cluster name, select the cluster name, wait for that demo cluster. The service name should be the demo service. The image definition file, if your file name is other than that image definition, something else, then you have to mention the exact path of the file or the name of the file. But if it's same, then no issues. Okay. And we are all good to go. Let's verify it. We're given the action name, I can provide ECS, the region, make sure the region is fine. The artifact, you have option either source by the source stage or the build stage, but we are defining that, we are giving that, you remember the artifact part, that is important here. This artifact part, here you are, what is the, in the build phase, what is the artifact is. So that artifact we're utilizing here, image definition. So let's go. Build artifact. Then the cluster name, we have selected the cluster name, we have selected service, image definition, the simple one. Okay, done. And now we have the deployment stage also. So we have the source and we have the build, we have the deployment, complete CI/CD. Now save it. Okay, now we have to see that this works fine, right? To do that, we can simply come to the index.js and make it version 2. So that we'll make it change and let's see if that works or not. If any problem, bugs happen, we'll fix it. So don't worry. You should have a like a attitude to bug fixing, because in the development you will see a lot of bugs. And let's fix if any happens. Don't worry. Version 2 changes. Commit. Push origin master. And that's it. It will get pushed. And look at our build artifact. Looks good. Let's see. We have made a change and it will, let's refresh. Sometimes doesn't come automatically, quickly. See, the build succeeded. I mean, the source succeeded just now. It automatically like the triggered the build and the entire pipeline flow. Then the build is there. And you can see the commit message also here. So you understand what is getting deployed. So ultimate goal is that when this build happens and the deployment happens, there it should show the version 2. Okay, that's where our goal is. So let's wait for that. And you might want to see that where the things are happening and all. So let's this gives us the details and we will show the details also that way. And if you're wondering about that, blue green part, you can simply, let me show you some creating new cluster while this is happening and all. Because this is gonna get bit time. And any kind of problem happens in the build phase, how you can look into that. I mean, you don't know. Any problem can happen, right? For that, come to the build details, just like I came, and look at the build phases. Any particular build phase fails, then you can come to the build docs and you can check there. Okay. Let's wait for that. So the source code is, download is done, the instruction done, rebuild is there. Okay, the preview is done, and you see all the logs are here. See, and all this preparing. The build is done. Now the pushing is happening, is pushed, and I think all succeeded. See, now let's come to the pipeline. Click there, and you'll see when the this is success. Every time you can succeeded and say this time the deployment is happening. So click on the details. If you click on the details, it will come to the ECS, that particular services window, and you can see it's there. And it show the active one, that is the version 1. And when it become version 2, think that the application deployed successfully. Let's wait for that. Now it takes some time, so be patient on that. Don't think it's not going to work. It's not like that. There are some checks are happening. That's they're checking this, staying alive for a few minutes and all automatically. That is the reason. So wait patiently for that. And if failure happens, we can see the failure here itself. Okay, so don't worry. See, it done. So it deployed successfully. So that's how easily you can make the entire pipeline and do the deployment and all that. Now that you know the basics, you don't all the time, because of the blue green pipeline, the cost is a bit higher and you might not even require it. But if you require it, simply I'll show you how to do that one, not completely, just the beginning part. Like create the cluster same way, EC2 Linux and all. Go there and there give it like sample blue green demo, whatever the cluster you want to create. Then say T3, large, medium, small, whatever you want. For the like production level deployment, have at least 2 to 3. And in the it creates the automatically. Let me show you how. Here, if you click on EC in the EC instances, or maybe you can just simply go to EC2. I'll show you how to increase the capacity, because you might need to, for the production level, you have to make sure it can scale when the load happens. So go down and you can see the auto scaling groups. You can see it automatically create the auto scaling group for you. Okay, this is the one. So click on that. Right now I have, you remember that I have mentioned 2, that's why, and edit it. Suppose you don't have to mention like 10 from the start. Start with 2 or 3 and set the maximum as say 10 or 20 based on your actual need. Okay, so when there is a huge load, it will create the resources for you, and when there is no load, it will come down automatically, right? So that will be easier for you guys. So yeah, so here when the deployment strategy, I think this is the one, blue green. Go down. I think I missed maybe. Or in the service itself, you can see, right? Let's go back. So in the service creation only you can mention that. Yes. You can mention that and you can target that one. That's it. Okay. I think I'm done. Sneha, you there?
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks, Sandeep.
Yeah.
So yes, I think now Pawan can take over and he will give us a quick demo of the WizLab hands on that. Over to you, Pawan.
Okay. Okay. Pawan, you can come and show the demo. Okay.
Pawan, you are on mute. Please unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you, thank you. Just give me a minute. Let me just close the QS. Okay, can you guys see my screen?
Not yet. Can you try again?
Okay, now can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see. So just quickly want to announce to all the attendees that shortly after Pawan's demo, we'll cover the Q&A section. So if you have any questions unanswered, please put in the Q&A section. So Sandeep will take over the Q&A right after this demo. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sneha. So thank you so much, Sandeep. It was a really detailed and well thought lab which you have showed us. So right now, with respect to WizLabs, we have a lot of labs which are available. Let me just go through one by one to make you understand what all features we have. So, okay, so as you know, whenever a real-time experiment is needed, whenever you want to try out something in the cloud, there is a lot of requirement which are needed. Basically, you need to go through AWS account creation or Azure account creation. It needs a lot of detailed information along with the credit card information. So that makes life a little bit difficult for the users. So we have a feature wherein you can come and directly use the labs, and these are all available for free. And WizLabs provides you with the cloud resources so that you can explore your skills. So let's understand what all things it covers. So mainly, when it comes to the clouds, you will have a lot of detailed instructions when it comes detailed instructions like lab details and task details. And you also have a validation feature where you will be able to understand whether you have completed the task or not. So let's go through a live demo so that I can provide you a better example. So I'm just going to wizlabs.com. Okay, so once you purchase any courses in WizLabs, let's say, for example, AWS Solutions Architect Associate or a Developer Associate, usually you will get a practice test and a video course. So we are also providing the hands-on labs with that. So that is where the real-time experience will come into picture. So here you can see the list of labs for AWS Solutions Architect Associate. So these labs are developed specially based on the syllabus you have for the certifications, and each and every lab has been provided with the detailed instructions for completing those. So let me start a lab. Okay, so here is an example of introduction to EC2. So for any services, we need to start with the introduction, and there are many complex labs available after this. So here you can see we have a lab where we are providing the lab details, which explains what exactly we are doing inside this lab. And then we have the detailed introduction of that particular concept where you can read and understand what that service actually means. And after that, we have a architecture diagram. This architecture diagram provides you a detailed configuration, what exactly is involved with that. So let me just go ahead and start the lab. So here you can see, once I started the lab, it is providing me these details: IAM users, password, access key, and secret access key. So let me just open the console. Okay, so once I open the console, okay, let me move this down. I'm entering the IAM user. I'm entering the password and I'm signing in. See, it was that much easy to go into the AWS console. It is completely free of cost. You don't have to pay anything upfront. You don't have to worry about whether the resource which you are creating, whether it is getting deleted or not. So those all things are taken care by WizLabs. We have written a extended detailed automation code which will take care of all these things. So for you, with respect to the learning phase, you can just come and see, okay, what is this lab? So it is an introduction to EC2. So I can learn how to create an EC2. So you can just come and create and test yourself, and then you can validate it to see whether you have done it properly or not. So this will give you a clear confidence on real-time environments. So let's just validate and see what will happen. So as you can see, the status of the lab is filled. This is because I have not created anything inside it. So once I create these things, it will say success. So this is very important when it comes to learning phase, because of the details which we are providing here. You will be able to do the labs very easily without any problems. And we also have a support system where you will be able to ask all your technical questions and that will be answered by our experts. So this is a really good environment for the users to come and try their skills, try and test their skills before going to any kind of interviews or be trying to test their knowledge. And yeah, so let me just go through the quests here and to show you what kind of labs we have. So as you go through the labs, you will understand that we have around 160 labs covering large number of AWS services topics. And also we do add a lot of labs on monthly basis. So let's say, for example, today Sandeep was explaining about container services. So let me just search for the container. So here you can see we have the labs on container services as well. So it becomes very easy for you guys when you have the complete steps available right here, along with the credentials of AWS, where you don't have to worry about the cost. You don't have to worry about anything else other than learning. So this is a really good tool for students to learn and benefit. So let me just go to my presentation. Okay. Yes, as I mentioned, we have a lot of learning paths. The learning paths are mainly based on the courses we have. The courses being AWS Solutions Architect, AWS Developer Associate, and DevOps Professional. So like this, all the AWS learning paths we do have in our website. So I think I have given the demo of this. And next, with respect to the labs, we do have around 160 labs for AWS. We have around 20 labs for Azure, and we have around 35 labs for Google Cloud. So this number keeps on increasing day by day. So we are adding large number of labs. And also, one of the advantages when it comes to WizLabs is that you guys can suggest us any labs you want. Let's say you want to have certain kind of particular concept you want to learn. So you can suggest us, like, please give us this lab. So we can work on that and we can create that new lab and provide it to you. So that kind of service is also available for us, and we are also doing it based on the user feedback. So here you can see the number of labs which we have as of now with respect to the particular courses. Yeah, so these are the new labs which are coming up in June 2021. So as you can see, we have a QuickSight, UXWorks, code commit, and automating your deployment using code pipeline. So the things which Sandeep has explained you, so that we were going to launch it as soon as possible, so that you guys can go through our labs and do these things on your own without any cost. Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much.
So it's Deepen Chakraborty saying that I'm from infrastructure background. To be successful DevOps guy, is it mandatory to know and learn programming language? If so, which programming language it should be? Now, you don't have to actually learn about programming language. It's completely optional, but you should have a view. I mean, how the procedure of coding also, how the flow works. Because sometimes they might ask you how to improve it. I mean, how can you improve our codes, or how can you deploy faster? If you had coding knowledge, it would be too much useful for, you don't even imagine that much useful it will be. Because suppose you have JavaScript or just application knowledge, if similar kind of project come, then it will, you know how to deploy, you know exactly how you can improve the services. So it's good to know, but it's not mandatory. Ultimately, suppose it's Dockerization, so they will give you a Docker image and you can simply deploy it, right? So it's not mandatory these days. You can simply go for either serverless kind of way or Dockerization, where you don't need to know about exactly what programming language they're running. You can simply run the container what they're giving you. So you can see it's optional. But if you have knowledge, then you can give them the suggestions they are seeking, and you have better opportunities. And but if you think about a DevOps kind of knowledge, that what could be beneficial, I don't know if you heard about or not. Go will be good. Go is good for making your own plugins and all, because most of the software you see in the CNCF or open source in DevOps tools, most of those are made using the Go. So all the plugin developments also go by the Golang. So if you can learn that, it will be easy. But again, it's completely not mandatory, optional. If you don't have the programming language, it's fine. Okay. The next question is Marco Antonio saying that what can use a different tag than latest in the code build, maybe in order to have different versions. Yeah. See, I told you in the latest, in the tag I'm using latest, but it can do anything like staging, production, version 1, version X, whatever you want. It's completely optional. Okay, as you want, you can do that way. Marco saying another question is the Docker push command notice the tag variable. Yeah, there was a tag variable, and you can change it as you want it. Latika saying, is the amount of development work is same in the cloud DevOps as is there in the software development job roles? The amount of development work. No, if you think that way, you just see as a DevOps engineer, you might have to configure the CI/CD pipeline or the underlying resources, just like I did. I created a cluster, I created the ECR repositories, I created the pipeline. So this kind of thing you have to do similar way, nothing more than that. Now the development jobs, coding, writing the business logic and everything, that will handle by the developers. Okay, you are more of the automation guy, you are more of the deployment, the pipeline, CI/CD flow making guy. You're making sure that deployment should happen flawlessly, all the code getting tested automatically. So this kind of things. Okay, that you have to sync with. For the coding part, you have to sync with the developer so that they can give the code, you can do the deployment. Okay, that's what it is. You don't have to now. Initial level, you might see a bit work more, but once you're done with the basic thing, you can use the same concept or same thing with other projects or everywhere. That will be it. So for that reason, I think using the infra as a code like Terraform or CloudFormation, those kind of things will be hugely helpful for you. Okay. Marco saying, where I can download the material from Sandeep's talk. I have my Vizsla subscription. Okay, then I'm going to share this my repo link with Sneha, Vizsla team, and they can share with you. Okay.
Yes, Sandeep. To all the attendees, we'll be sharing the recording. We'll be emailing it to you, as well as it will be available on our YouTube channel. So don't worry about that. You can easily access it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Marco saying one question that I have made long time ago: the student not English talking needs subtitle. I think they can enable. Now it's kind of automatic, but I think they will be able. Dinesh saying that when new version of CISO exam will be available. Now this is Vizsla. Can you tell? Yeah.
Yes, we'll cover this question. You can move forward.
So it's Mallikarjun saying that I have taken AWS DevOps course. Is good to take. Yeah, if you have taken developer course, DevOps will be your final goal from the DevOps background, the CSUPs, and then the developer, and then go for the DevOps. Okay, at least take 2 to 3 month preparation. Do some practice stage with the WizLab. WizLab have the good courses also. You can be from there. There's Sandeep Singh saying that as we know, there's hundreds of AWS services come with some of them, some same work. How you decide, I don't know what I'm saying. I think how to refer CloudWatch. I think yeah, that's it. Okay, yeah, I've covered it.
Okay. Other than that, we have some questions on our YouTube live as well. Let me dictate it for you. So
Okay.
Keshav is asking, I'm targeting for AWS DevOps certification. I have AWS Developer Architect Associate and IML and ML specialization already, but I have very, very less experience with AWS and DevOps. How should I prepare for AWS DevOps certification?
So in the DevOps, as I show the services in the slides, where I've covered all the tools and just learn about those tools, just how I deploy the entire CI/CD flow, follow all that, think about using AWS code build, what are the other options there. So learn this DevOps tools first, then the core services. You have to see hands-on is required. Without hands-on, you cannot pass this exam. I'm saying it multiple times. You have to do hands-on, you have to learn about the basic services.
Whenever a real-time experience is needed, whenever you want to try out something in the cloud, there is a lot of requirement which are needed. Basically, you need to go through AWS account creation or Azure account creation. It needs a lot of detailed information along.
Right. So we need to more hands-on, more use case specific. See, if you are targeting professionals, that they're expecting you to know all that, how to. There's a bug, then you have to understand what could be the reason of the bug. Just like show the permission issue, right? I have to fix the permission issue. This kind of intuition they have to have. Without practical trying out, you cannot solve that. I mean, how can you know all that? You just practical try out, try to solve that, and then if the same question comes, you can answer it very easily. So practical experience is needed. Try to have your own project, try to run your own domain, how to apply your application for your own domain for that, and then work on some real life projects. Then you can easily pass the DevOps certification. I can guarantee on that part. You need some real time experience. Okay, Sneha, you can go for next question.
Yes, one more question we have on our YouTube chat is, can we check real time build? Bharat is asking.
Yeah, I just show in the pipeline. I have shown how to. I'm checking the build happening in the build logs, right? We can see.
Okay, great. So I hope we have covered all the questions. If you have any further questions, don't worry, we'll be reaching out to you, and you can share your questions further to us, and we'll coordinate with Sandeep and get all your questions answered. Yes, so moving forward, let's start the quiz which we all are waiting for. Sandeep, can you share your screen?
Yeah, share the screen. Just a moment. Okay, I hope you guys can see the screen.
Yes, we can see. Can you put it in the present mode?
Present, okay, just a moment.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
So the first question is that where do we store the Docker image? Is it S3? Is it Elastic Container Registry? Is it EFS? Or is it Elastic Block Storage? And answer that. Sneha, you will be answering the winner, right? I mean, you'll be answering the winner.
Be answering after all the 5 questions.
Okay, all the 5 questions, right? So the first question is this.
This is the second. Can you go back?
Sorry. Okay, sorry. I think I just go faster. Okay, which AWS tool or service you can use for making the Docker image? AWS Code Commit. So think about the class. I mean the demo I've shown which service I have used for making the Docker image. Is it AWS Code Commit? Is it AWS Code Start? Is it AWS Code Build, or it is AWS Code Pipeline? Okay. Should we go down?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, I think we just asked you anyway. Where do you store the Docker image? Is it S3, ECR, EFS, or Elastic Block Storage? Let's wait for. So let me know now when we should go to the next
Sure,
question.
sure. We are receiving a lot of answers.
You have to select the
Yeah.
winner from that. Okay.
Okay, let's go to the next question.
Which one is infra as a code service? AWS Code Pipeline, AWS Lambda, AWS ECS, or AWS Cloud Formation?
Great. I hope all of you have answered. Let's move to the next question.
So AWS Code Pipeline is used for what? Okay, making build from the source code, automating the build, test, deploy phases for your release process, or pulling the source code, or deploying code to the servers. So what is the exact use case of the AWS Code Pipeline? That you have to say. So let's wait and see what are the answers.
Okay, let's go to the next question.
And these are final questions. Try your luck, guys. Okay. If build failed in code build, remember I told you to notice that part. Where should you check? In the AWS code commit source, AWS code build logs and CloudWatch, local system or Docker file. Where should you look? Okay. Let's see.
Okay, time's up.